Umuulan na naman at naghahanap na tayo ng mainit na mahihigop. Itong recipe na to, ito yung comfort food namin nung bata kami pag tag-ulan at lalo na pag may sakit kami. Chicken Arroz Caldo o sa amin tinatawag naming pospas.
Simpol, simpol. Luto na, ha, ha.
So ano ba talaga ang Arroz Caldo? Chinese ba siya na influence or Spanish siya influence? Kasi yung arroz means rice and caldo means soup. So it's like a rice soup. But kung titingnan mo yung recipe natin, sobrang niyang lapit sa congee. So ano ba talaga siya? Pero sa amin, ang tawag talaga sa kanya ay pospas. So ano bang ibig sabihin ng pospas? Kung meron sa inyo nakakaalam ng origin ng word na pospas, sabihin nyo sa akin sa comment. May prize kayo sa akin. Hindi ko talaga alam yun. Pero sisimulan natin yung ating pospas or chicken arroz caldo. So, first and foremost, gagamit tayo ng bigas. Yung gamit ko na bigas dito ay halong malagkit at regular rice. So, sa 3/4 cup ko na regular rice, may 1/4 cup ako na malagkit. Pero kung gusto mo mas sticky, pwedeng half and half. Half malagkit and half regular rice. Hinugasan ko siya ng 3 or 4 times para maging clear yung water at nilagyan ko ng konting tubig. You see, it's soaking in water, salt, at konting oil. Nakasoak na siya ng mga 30 minutes to 1 hour. Mas maganda siya, ang mangyayari dito, mas maganda yung pag-puff ng rice when we cook it. So, you do this ahead of time, pero usually sa amin yung ginagamit namin bahaw para wala tayong sayang sa bahay. And secondly, ano yung prep natin is gagamit tayo ng chicken. So, gamit natin dito ay chicken wings and chicken legs and neck, no? Kasi gusto natin yung sabaw niya sobrang malasa. And kaya nga sinasabi nila na yung arroz caldo maganda para sa may sakit. Kasi the nutrients of the bones of the chicken will go to the soup, no? So pag kinain mo, it's very nourishing and malambot siya, it's easy to digest. So, what is the trick here also? Inasin na natin yung chicken and we wash it halos 7 times. 7 times. Bakit 7 times? We want na pag tinignan mo yung water, hindi na siya bloody. No, wala na siyang impurities, hindi siya bloody. So that pag dinabas na, ginawa natin yung ating arroz caldo, hindi grayish yung color niya. Medyo maputi pa rin siya. That's why the chicken has to be really cooked very well. So sisimulan na natin yung ating arroz caldo. So, yung gagawin natin muna, before we go to cooking this, gagawa muna tayo ng fried garlic. Yung fried garlic natin, gagamitin natin para later sa topping natin. So, what I do ay oil. And I add my garlic. So, hindi pa mainit yung oil ko, lalagay ko na yung aking minced garlic. Yan. So, I infuse the oil with garlic. Kuha tayo ng fried garlic. Dapat medium heat natin so that it dehydrates, it toasts, no? So gusto natin yung garlic natin maging crispy. Kasi kung masyado mataas yung fire, nasusunog siya agad at yung loob niya moist pa rin. So we are dehydrating our garlic in the oil so that it has time to cook. Our garlic turns golden. Strain natin siya ng mabilisan. We don't want it to burn. So, we put our garlic aside. Mamaya, gagamitin natin siyang topping. And now, what we do is we saute our onions and add our chicken. So, saute din natin yung ating chicken pieces. Yan. Yan mo. Medyo naputla yung ating chicken kasi we washed it several times. Kasi ayaw nga natin ng bloody yung ating chicken. Season natin with some salt. And I add my rice. So, yung mixture ko of malagkit and regular rice, no? Seasoned with a little salt and a little bit of oil. Yan. Just put that there. Look at the rice. Sobrang konti ng rice. That's just 1 cup of rice. But we add 6 more cups of stock or water. And I just pour it. So imagine sa isang cup mo na bigas, dadagdagan mo ng 7 to 8 cups of water. Ano kadaming lugaw yan? Kaya naintindihan nyo na kung saan nanggaling yung tubong lugaw. So ito talaga tubong lugaw kasi sobrang daming tubig dinagdag natin. And we just cover up our pot. Let it simmer and cook for around 15 minutes. But we have to stir occasionally, no? Until it's done. It's already boiling. So what do we do now? We stir every few minutes para maging creamy ang ating sabaw, ating kaldo. So look at that as it continues to cook and hinahalo mo yung arroz caldo natin. Lumalaki na yung rice niya at nagiging medyo ma-creamy na yung konti yung ating sabaw. We've been cooking this for almost 10 minutes and nakikita natin yung transformation ng ating kaldo from kanina na medyo translucent pa siya into something that's very thick already. No? Opaque na yung nangyayari sa ating sabaw. So, our arroz caldo is at the final stages of our cooking. Nakikita natin, nag-puff na yung rice natin. Season na natin siya ng konting patis. So, we're using patis instead of salt para dagdag dinamnam. Patis to flavor. And, di ba yung gusto natin yung may konting luya na lasa? Hindi ko ginisa yung luya, nilalagay ko siya at the very end so that there's still a freshness of the ginger taste. So when you bite into the ginger, yun, sobrang sarap, sobrang refreshing. And instead of black pepper, I'm going to use white pepper para sobrang ganda ng ating kaldo. Very clean, very white. And we're ready. Oh, I miss my mom tuloy. Mom, luto tayo ng arroz caldo. And we're done. What we do, we just sprinkle a little bit of our fried garlic. And a little bit of spring onions. And we just serve with hard-boiled eggs para kompletong-kompleto yung ating arroz caldo experience. One of the most comforting dishes in my world, one of my favorite comfort foods, arroz caldo. Simpol! Nagustuhan niyo ba ang video na to? Please share para lalong dumaming ating mga kasimpol. And don't forget to subscribe to our Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram accounts.